Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adbooked.
This is Merps, and we have some stuff to talk about. We're okay.
Do we?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We've only been doing this for a year and a
anyways.
half. Do we really? Do we have more stuff to talk about? Are we done? Is
We,
this like
we,
the
we
end of
can
the
make it.
arena
We're
now?
inching ever closer to 100 episodes, and yeah, I think we'll make it there. Anyways, leaderboards are out for the month of April. They always seem to be pretty late on this stuff, and the leaderboards are finally out, although it's only out for NA, correct?
Right? Like, that was weird.
Yeah.
Because normally Asia trails by like a few hours, but you know, it's Asia. It's the middle of the night when they release here anyway. Who cares? Like, they'll get it in the morning. But like, it's been a couple days now since the release of the NA April leaderboards, and EU is still not out. Asia is still not out.
Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate, but we shall see. We can give congratulations to everyone who placed high on the April leaderboards. So I'll just read out sort of the top 10. Number 1 is Icewind. Big congrats to Icewind with an 8.47 average. Very impressive. And Adults, as you know, I'm terrible at reading out names, so apologies if I butcher people's names. Lebepek, nailed it.
Definitely
Meow
how that's
Adu.
pronounced.
Yeah, I know. Meow Adu, Mr. J, Meow Bozy, and then Meow Ancient. A lot of people in the Meow clan.
In case this is the, like, as most people know this by now, but the Meow clan's a Chinese players who play Arena. They all decided to start their names with Meow when they're playing outside of the China servers.
As per people who are in a clan.
Wait, are they actually all in a clan? Like one clan? I thought it was just all the players in China who played, like, you know, Arena.
No, it's a clan.
It's literally one clan in China.
Yeah, it's a clan in China.
I see.
Number 7 is Zeist. Number 8 is Gyro. Number 9 is Meow501. Number 10 is Sportstar. So those are the top 10. Big congrats to them. We also want to give some additional shout outs to sort of repeat players and, you know, just a few of our buddies and fellow streamers. So coming in at number 13 is actually Theodore B, who made the top 15 3 months in a row in EU. And guess he decided to take his talents to the NA server and get another top 15. Yeah, like very consistent, great performances. So congrats once again to Theodore B. We have, you know, quite a few other players that are going to be very familiar to you guys. We got Crip also on the leaderboard. We got Brian Wong of Magic the Gathering fame. Isherwood is on here. I see Hafu on this list as well, although it's not with her normal name. I think she's just given up and she's like, I don't even need credit for this anymore. But her sort of alternate account name is on here. I won't out her.
Are you sure it's not just someone else pretending to be Hafu's alternate account? Like last time, how
it's
Trump
kind of
pretended to be Hafu?
It's kind of a weird name. It's not like Sneaky Pants or Crazy Pants, you know? It's not one of those. It could be. I mean, I can't... it could be, but I think it is Hafu. Anyways, so like I said, Crip, Brian Wong, Isherwood is on there. I'm probably missing a couple people. I see Victor here as well, Dreads. Congrats to all of those individuals. I see a Maz here as well. I'm actually just looking at this list right now. He also has an alternate name. I won't out him at the same time. Once again, as per your comment, it is possible that there are 2 people in the top 100. One is a Hafu alternate account impersonator, and another one is a Maz alternate account impersonator.
That's meta. That's like so meta.
Maybe. But anyways, that's the leaderboard. EU isn't out yet. Asia isn't out yet.
All right, so I mean, I want to point out that right now, the NA leaderboards at the very bottom, the top 100, 7.07 is what it takes now to get into the top 100. How crazy is that? 7.07 would have got you like top 20 in the first month, I think.
Yeah, it definitely was very like we see that the averages are quite high. We said this before though. Um, the March and April leaderboards, like there were two big events, one in each month that can knock the numbers around, right? In March, it was the release of 7.1, and in April, it's the release of Angoro. I am very interested to see what happens this month when they come out with the May arena leaderboards.
Yeah. And also I think that same change, because I don't know. I'm just looking at April right now. I haven't compared with what's the month before April? March.
March.
That is the month before April. So I haven't compared with March yet. But like looking at March, the bottom of the leaderboard, top 100, was 6.9. April is 7.07. That's a rise of 0.2 just within these two. And if anything, there were more noobs coming in for Angoro than for 7.1. So there's just a win rate creep going on here. And in both months, if I am correct, the rule in which you take the top 30 consecutive runs, right? Like the chunk of 30 consecutive runs is the one that counts.
Right. I mean, I think that's made a difference. But I don't understand you saying even, like, the fact that more noobs are coming in means that the average should be higher, right?
Oh, right. So I used, not even, but yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it makes sense. So, like, yeah, I was a little bit confused. I was like, no. Like, that means if more noobs are coming in, that would explain, it is one possible explanation for the higher win rate. That's why I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see this, the May leaderboards, because there's no big event here that can knock the numbers around, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think with May, we'll see what sort of the baseline number is, because we have enough people who are tryharding. We have people who are in the know. This leaderboard thing doesn't catch people off guard anymore, and we don't have sort of a big event that sort of invites all the noobs in, and then they probably leave in like a week and a half, making a significantly harder meta than when you have all the noobs playing. So
I think this is going to be the first settled meta where the entire month is in a settled meta. So we'll see
definitely
how that goes. I also want to give a shout out to, like, because we play like 30 runs a month, less probably, which is why we're not on here. So just so you guys know, neither of us tried for April, and we're not trying for May either. One of us will do it for June. We haven't figured out who yet.
Yeah, it could be you, man.
Fine. Okay. But there are a lot of people who are playing a lot of arena runs. Some of these numbers are insane. Like Eddie at number 87 played 169 arena runs.
That's a lot.
169 arena runs. Holy crap. I don't think I've played that much in like a year. And Riot at number 11 with 7.8 wins per run at 118 runs. He's the one that's the highest of the people who have over 100 runs. There are some dedicated arena players here. Yeah,
that is pretty insane. If you look at 169 divided by 3, my gosh, divided by 30, you're, oh my god, how does he do that?
Right.
I don't understand how you do like 5 to 6 runs every single day.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is pretty ridiculous, but that's what the numbers are telling us. That's how many runs that 169 run guy did.
Yeah.
And he's good because at least he got a good spike in there because he had like 7.1, and number 11 Ryo got like 7 point, I don't know, like 6, 8. I forget the exact number. But also, like, it's not like their actual average. It's the highest 30 runs is what Blizzard's counting now. But still, these are pretty ridiculous numbers.
That time.
Yeah, like if we got our averages in this like new meta again, it would not rank as high as it did before. Like it's getting much harder to make the list, and it's getting much harder to place on the list.
Yeah, definitely. And especially if you only do like 30 to 40 runs, it's like you're buying one ticket to a raffle, and other people who play a lot have like 3 to 4 tickets, right?
Right.
So, anyways,
let's move on from the leaderboard into Actually, the game. Okay, so we've kind of not talked about Ungoro for a couple weeks now in terms of like how to actually play, and before that we focused a lot on the draft. But now I want to focus down on some gameplay stuff. I think a lot of, let's see, the problem with like doing general advice when it comes to Ungoro gameplay is that it's so specific. It's so like read based, and it's so much based on your actual draft. Gameplay is kind of de-emphasized in Ungoro outside of the very basics, right? Like, we're not going to teach you how to trade on the board by adding numbers efficiently, right? Like, that's not you can figure that out. So we usually teach them the more big picture stuff, and between the fact that classes all play their own thing now, like classes are very different than each other right now, to the fact that there's not really a good way to play several of the classes because they kind of suck. To the fact that gameplay just doesn't matter as much as it used to. It's kind of hard to like talk about it, but I'll go into one concept that since 7.1 has become a much bigger part of the arena. And it's not a terribly advanced concept, but it's also not a basic concept. It's like a next step concept. It's like you probably don't know, you're probably not doing this very consistently if you're like a 4 or 5 win player. But if you're like a 6, 7 win player, you're probably already doing it whether you know it or not. It's a good way to formalize it. And that's the question of going big or going small. So this is about an empty board, and you have no reads on your opponent, and you have, like, let's say the same amount of cards, but you're about to get one turn of tempo ahead, right? And this is not like on turn 2 or turn 3 or whatever. This is like turn 10 or like turn 8 or 9 or turn 15 or whatever, right? Where you have some cards, your opponent has some cards, it's kind of even-ish, and you want to figure out how to win. So, and you both have like a good amount of health pool. So in a situation like this, the person who will eventually win, your win conditions are one of two things, assuming you don't have like a Deathwing or like a ridiculous thing in your deck, and he doesn't either. It's you get 1 or 2 cards over him through a mix of top decking and eating his stuff. And then you just have more cards, and so you end with more tempo, and so you end up killing him. Or, at some point you take control of the board, he can't get you off the board, and you hit his face and bring him down from like 20 whatever health that he probably has before he can clear you, and then it doesn't matter how many cards you end up with. So, those are, and having some reach helps too, but those are your generally like your only 2 win conditions at this point. And we can just assume you're like mage or paladin or whatever, just like a normal class, right? Like, so not priest, so, not hunter. We don't want to put you in a weird class. And the question about going big or going small means your hand you can drop like a 3-drop, a 3-drop, and a 4-drop, or you can drop like an 8-drop. And then you pass the other 2 mana on your turn, right? Like, those are your 2 choices.
Sure.
What do you do? Do you go wide, or do you go kind of tall? Do you go big, or do you go small?
Are you asking me this? Is it like a rhetorical thing directed towards the listeners, or is it actually just me?
I don't know. You can take it as a question, or if you want, I could continue on as if.
Oh, just continue on, man. I'm not here. It's all good.
All right. So in this solo Lightforge, we're going to talk about what really matters and how to really improve your gameplay in Ungoro. And so let's start with going big. What happens when you go big? How will your opponent respond to it? Well, your opponent's going to respond one of 2 ways. Your opponent is going to respond by spreading out, going wide, which means going 3 minions deep usually. And then, or your opponent's going to respond by using a large removal and then playing a medium or small minion. Those are your opponent's only 2 choices. Because if your opponent plays like another big minion, assuming it's not like actually bigger than yours, he's very, very, very vulnerable. Because not only can you perhaps eat that minion and still stay alive, depending on, how your minions are, like whether yours is a little bigger than his or his is a little bigger than yours, you can also remove the big minion if you have a hard removal and then go face, and then you're pretty much winning at that point, right? If he has 20-something health, you just dealt 8 damage to his face, he's in trouble now. Now you no longer are in the situation where both of you are kind of equal. Now you have a definite advantage. And even if you have none of that, you can still just hit his face and not initiate the trade. Because he by playing a big minion, has shown that he doesn't have a hard removal. And so you can then go to his face, and you will get that 8 damage before he is now on the reactive side and has to remove your 8 drop, and then you had put other minions in, and so you have the initiative from that point on, right? So to your opponent, playing a big minion is a very, very, very bad choice. So one, if your opponent does play so in the scenario in which you play a big minion, if your opponent does play a big minion, he's out of options. You have him. Like, you need to be aggressive at that point. You need to take all your advantages. You need to start pushing face because you have the initiative right now. If your opponent does the more likely thing, which is to spread small, you can remove or you can go face, depending on what your deck is, depending on if you have taunts, depending on a whole lot of things, right? So let's look at the flip side. On the flip side, what if you go small? What if you go wide with, you know, a 3-3, a 3-3, and a 4-4? Why would you do that? Well, if you do that, your opponent can, if he has a board clear, he's going to use it. If he has a small removal, he may like use a small removal to get rid of your most threatening minion and then play like 2 other small things to match you, right? Like 1 for 1. Or he may play a big thing, usually a taunt in that case. If it's not a taunt, you just go face, and it'll take him forever to remove your stuff, and you pretty much won. But if it is a big giant taunt, now he's just traded 1 card for 3 of your cards, unless you have a big removal, right? And then you kind of lose. So those are his choices there. So knowing all of that, you can actually make the correct decision of what to play. Because there is a correct decision when you have these 2 options, knowing nothing about his hand, having no reads whatsoever. And that's because you know your own hand. If you have a large removal, what do you want your opponent to do? You are now able to solve the problem of your opponent playing one big thing, right?
Sure.
So if you played a big thing and your opponent played a big thing, you were already in a very good spot. You don't need this large removal. This large removal is doing nothing but burning a hole in your pocket because you're basically, by playing a large minion, you're incentivizing your opponent to play a bunch of small minions or to just remove your big minion and play a mid-sized minion or small minion. So instead, you need to spread out if you have a large removal. That is the only correct option in that case, if you have no reads on your opponent. Because by spreading out, you incentivize your opponent to play a large taunt. If your opponent also spreads out, are you okay? You're fine, right? Because if your opponent had the tools to spread out, he was going to spread out anyway, no matter whether you play the big thing or the small things. And then he was going to totally destroy you if he played the small thing. I mean, if you had played the big thing, right? Because then he'll just hit face and get a lot of damage, and you're kind of either racing or you're in a really inefficient way of removing his stuff while he has the initiative to begin attacking you however you want the next turn, right? Think about it. He puts down 3-3, 3-3, 4-4. You have an 8-8. You kill the 4-4. Next turn, his 2-3-3 things have initiative. Like, that's really bad. So by playing wide, you counter his small thing with your things on the board, while the thing in your hand counters the thing that he can do to counter you. So if
makes sense to me, man.
If you have a big thing in your hand, like a big removal in your hand, you want to play all the small things. Now, he could have a board clear. Yes, he could. But remember, you have no read on him. You can't, like, constantly avoid playing into a board clear. If you can, obviously, going 1 big, 1 small is better than totally spreading if you're afraid of a board clear. But the idea is you want multiple things on the board. You want to go in a more small direction. You don't want to go in a big direction. On the other hand, if you have a small removal and you spread out and your opponent plays a big thing, well, maybe your small removal can combo with one of your minions to give him a 2-for-1, which is not the most awful thing, but it's still not the best thing, and you've used up your removal. On the other hand, if you play a big minion, you incentivize him to play a bunch of small minions, in which case the next turn, one of your big minion can kill his, let's say, his 4-4, or his 3-3 even. You can use your small removal to kill his 4-4. You can then play a bunch of other stuff, and your big minion can't be removed off the board. So he'll still have initiative, maybe, if he played 3 minions, but he can't remove your biggest threat off the board with just his board, and you have a whole bunch of other stuff. So now, you're ahead. Now you're very much ahead on the board, because you had a small removal, and you played big. Well, what about the other option? What if you play big, and he uses a large removal? He's going to follow, like, large removals cost stuff, right? They cost mana. So he's not going to use the large removal and then play something big. He's going to use the large removal and then play something small. And what do you have in your hand? You have a small removal, right? Like, in either case, you can recover better against this large removal, and you can really push ahead if he goes small, if you have the small removal in your hand by playing big. So the basic concept, like if you don't have any other reads or anything else, is if you have a big removal in your hand, go small. If you have a small removal in your hand, go big. Assuming you have both options. Obviously, your health, his health, you know, what other cards you're looking to draw from your deck, number of cards you have in your hands, all of that matters and shifts things in different directions. But assuming everything's equal and no one is closer to death, what you want to do is go the opposite route of the removals that you have.
Right. I think this is just a very important concept in general. And when a lot of people consider plays, they don't consider sort of because there's a million things that can happen during the next turn, right? And you can categorize it into 3 buckets. I'll categorize into 3 buckets. The first bucket is stuff that I really do not care about because it is just a bad play on their end. For example, like they, you're ahead, and then, you could be afraid of like AoE, or you could be afraid of a taunt, but stuff that goes in the first bucket is them playing like a Twilight Summoner, right? Like a slow 4-mana minion that has a 1/1 body to start off with. Like that would go into the first bucket of stuff that you can consider as an option, but it's stuff that you probably won't even think about because it's not a threat at all. So that's the first bucket. The second bucket is going to be stuff that is, quote, bad for you, but you can take care of, right? Because of the cards in your hand. And then the third bucket is stuff that is bad for you and you can't take care of. And a lot of players, they think of it in terms of, like, sometimes they can even identify, oh, okay, so there are these 2 buckets, right? They don't even think of the first bucket, which is already a step ahead of a lot of players, because if you think of the first bucket, then you just get overwhelmed. So they narrow it down to the 2 buckets, but they don't realize that with your play, you are incentivizing your opponent to play into one of those 2 buckets, right? And this is exactly what you're talking about. Sort of your play can sort of lead your opponent and force them, or at least make it more likely that they play into, one of these 2 buckets. And you want to make sure that they play into something which you have an answer to. So I think this is a very important concept and something we haven't talked about enough, which is you can help decide your opponent's turn by what you do. So sometimes it's not just thinking, what is the strongest play for me, right? It's like, what is the strongest play overall, which a lot of it entails you not really baiting out a play from your opponent, but sort of giving the correct incentives or actually forcing their hand, right? Like if you spread out, they like either have to remove or they have to either, play a big taunt or spread out, or you're going face, right? And so I think that's really important, like knowing that you can influence your opponent's plays and knowing exactly how, judging by the cards in your hand, like what's the more advantageous position for you.
Yes, and I think that's key. The idea is, like, when you're playing a single-player game, you're doing your thing, and then your opponent gets his turn, and he does his thing, but you influence each other. So, kind of, you're always pulling the strings of your opponents, right, based on what you do. You're giving him certain information. You're letting him see certain things. You're holding back other information. Any information that you hold back, that your opponent would make a move differently if he had known that you had this particular card, is a win, right? Like, from like, if you know poker, this is like Sklansky's like theory of poker. If my opponent knows what cards I have and would have made a different decision, that I have gained a relative advantage, and vice versa applies the same way. That applies to all card games and really any game of imperfect information. So anytime you have information, which is, when you have your own cards, only you can see these cards, you have to find a way to make it so that your opponent plays in a different way so that you can use your cards to greater advantage. And obviously, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to bait stuff out, or, I'm going to try to make them do this or whatever. And it gets like really fancy and really specific, and it sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. But the really, really basic one is this: big or small. You go big, he wants to go small. You go small, he wants to go big. He doesn't really want to go big, but if he has a taunt, he wants to go big. If he doesn't have a taunt, he wants to continue going small. And we framed this in kind of a go big, go small way, because what you really want to do is split and have like one big, one small, so that he can't really like do anything. But that's not always the option, right? Like the best option is always one big-ish thing and then one small-ish thing. And this has always been a core principle of how you get ahead, right? This will get you the like one card advantage. This will get you the tempo advantage. This will turn a stalled game all of a sudden into, holy crap, I'm pushing in like 20 damage on him over the course of 2-3 turns. And I'll be honest, it used to work better than it does now. And there's one reason why it doesn't work as well now. And that is poison. Because poison screws this whole thing up. Because your opponent gets to go both small and big, right? If there's one poisonous minion on the board and you had put out a big minion, it changes the whole entire dynamic. Because the small minions, in some ways it's balanced, because the small minions, if you played a bunch of them, they were always weak to a board clear, and there's nothing much you can do about it. So now this large minion is now always vulnerable to a poison minion, and there's nothing much you can do about it. You can like make one trade, right? And then the poison minion takes care of your, like, I don't know, 8-5 or whatever, which is still a great deal for them. But generally speaking, that aside, you're going to gain a lot of advantages. And this is more important now than ever, even though it works a little less well, because the scenarios in which this applies has, like, tripled. You used to, like, get into these situations once every, like, 2-3 games, right? And then you're like, I did this. Oh, yeah, I got my win. Now you do, this is, like, almost every game. You'll get into this situation multiple times almost every game because the boards are just so freaking stalled. So it's just something, it's something you need to be aware of and thinking about, right? Like, I am going to make my opponent play small so he plays into my board clear. I'm going to make my opponents play big so I can remove it. And that's how you gain the advantage, and that's how you break your stalemates in Un'Goro.
Right, and it seems like people are slowly getting used to this concept. And there are certain cards that have this, that sort of build up this skill, right? For example, a card that doesn't build the skill in the same way that Adwocate is talking about, but sort of helps you with this theory is Volcano, right? Mm-hmm. Volcano sort of, even though it doesn't it covers both big and small, but what it does is it helps you think about, okay, like what can my opponents play? Sort of like, are they playing, basically like, are they going to create a problem for me, right? By if I just wait a turn, and it does make people think about later turns. So I think cards like Volcano sort of get people on the step of thinking more intricately about what your opponents can do. And it sort of lets you shape sort of, oh, okay, I want them to play this or play that. And then you want to play like just enough minions with Volcano so that they, to whittle down their HP just enough, right? So I think Volcano is one of those good cards that sort of enhances sort of this, I want to say, advanced turn planning skill.
So but even a card like a Volcano, are you talking about if you have a Volcano or if your opponent has a Volcano?
No, it can work both ways.
Okay, so I mean, if you have a Volcano, do you want to go big or go small?
I mean, if you have a Volcano, basically you want to like be just annoying, right? You just want to be like annoying, and then you want them to drop stuff. And it doesn't even matter if they drop like big or small. It's just HP. It's about turn expectation, right? Like how much
What do you mean by HP? like health on their minions?
Yeah, health on their minions. Okay. Like how much should I expect from their turn? Or like, can they screw me because they will evolve or just do something crazy?
I don't know. They probably can't put, if they don't have a board, they probably can't put 15 HP onto their board, especially when you need to get rid of one of your minions.
Oh, it's one of those board states where like they have about 8 to 10 HP on the board, and you're like, do I wait one turn? I could just put down like a Balfin Tidehunter and put down like this, like the 2/3 taunt with a death rattle, and then just try to extract some more value. I've always found those turns to be like pretty interesting. And then if it's on the flip side, you think or that your opponent has a Volcano, then it really depends on board state, right? And you've gone through this before. You want to just only be like slightly ahead in that case.
Yep.
You don't want to be dominating ahead because then they just flip it with a volcano. You just want to be slightly ahead. You want to keep that board tension, which is always a little bit dangerous, but very enjoyable when you.
So what does that have to do with what we're talking about?
No, it's advanced turn planning. Like on the big picture, I think this is something that people don't do enough. Like basically think about what my opponent can do and then sort of leverage that with like the risk that is inherent in sort of every single play.
Okay. All right. Well, that's deep fried meta. Just keep it simple. If you have a big removal, go small. If you have a small removal, go big. Assuming the board is empty. Okay, so let's go on. Question from the GOAT. What do we got?
Question from the GOAT. Okay. So yesterday, a little bit of a preface before I asked the question. So yesterday, we Audukta and I, we had our HOTS stream where we played Heroes of the Storm. It was interesting. What did you think, first of all?
About Heroes of the Storm?
Yeah.
I think it's really just like Hearthstone, right? Like in many ways, all you have to do is draft a deck, and then you make good plays, and the RNG decides the outcome. No, it's a totally different game. I see no relation between it and Hearthstone or the arena. There's very little RNG involved. You're kind of in full control. You have a team. I don't know. What about you? Are you going somewhere with this?
Yes. So during that time, yeah, that wasn't the question. You didn't have to answer that much. God. So during this time,
I didn't know it was rhetorical. You specifically asked me.
Well, yeah, I was like, oh, what'd you think of the game? Yeah, you come back. Oh, it was fun. Which I don't know if that's your answer. Anyways, so during this time, you were a fan of Cho'Gall, right? And you played Cho quite a lot, right? So
yeah, Cho's fun.
Yeah. Well, you obviously enjoyed it. So my question is, like, did you learn anything from Cho'Gall that you can apply to Hearthstone, like co-op wise? I was Gall for one game. That was basically terrible. I thought that was a terrible
because you
experience.
never exploded the ball.
But
I would roll balls
did you learn
and
anything
just wouldn't explode them.
by sort of trapping other members of our team in with your big lumpy body? Basically, in terms of teamwork, anything you can apply to Hearthstone.
No, I don't think so. So if you guys don't know, Cho'Gall is like a two-player character, so you're missing one character from your team, and instead you have two heroes. You have one hero, and he's like bigger than other heroes, has more health, deals more damage, and tanks more. And the other person controls like his actual abilities, like a mage style, and attacks with it. So one person's moving the guy around and doing like basic attacks and positioning, and the other person is like directing attacks. I don't know what you're going for. I don't think it really applies to Hearthstone.
I think it was just interesting because we were talking about like co-oping, right? Last week. I don't know. No, that is honestly just me being curious about it, because it is another sort of because we do co-ops all the time, and it's just one of those situations where it's another like co-op situation. I think there are similarities because it's like one person is controlling the mouse, right? It's like when you're co-oping, one person is always controlling the mouse. The other person...
No, it's totally different. In Hearthstone, one person controls everything. The other person's just talking. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
In the Cho'Gall situation, both players are playing. I think you just felt really helpless for some reason, even though you were half the team.
Oh, God, your movements... Oh god!
Like you just basically just complained the whole entire time and sucked. Like when you were playing, and then immediately we got someone better to be the other side of my Cho'Gall, and we won.
We won one, and then we lost the other one.
We lost the other one. But like at least we were doing stuff. Like we were just totally incompetent together because you wouldn't like. So a lot of the abilities and the like attacks and stuff have to be coordinated between two people. And I would be the setup because usually it's set up by by Cho, and Gall like explodes the balls or whatever, and Merps just wouldn't finish off the combo. Like I don't know. I think it's in many ways it's better for Hearthstone because if I have the mouse, I just get to do stuff, right? It ropes, I get to do stuff. If you have the mouse, it ropes, and you get to do stuff. when you're actually relying on other people, as you see from Overwatch and like, you know, other kinds of team games, it gets really difficult. Like definitely an additional layer of difficulty. It doesn't make it easier.
I find it funny. So, like, when you are playing as Gull, you can do subtle, like, you don't have control over the character, but you can do stuff like nudge your character one way.
Yeah,
right?
it basically, like, pushes the character in a direction by, like, a short bit,
right.
like a little
Imagine
hop.
if you could do that in, like, Hearthstone co-ops. Oh, my gosh. Where, like, for a limited period of time, one person can just take over the mouse. They would never. All right, first of all, they can't even get spectator mode right. Obviously, they're not like co-oping is like so far away. Like there's maybe 20 years from now. Okay, maybe episode like 4058 of the Lightforge. We'll be talking about that. Hologram adults and mercs will be talking about that new feature that they implemented. But no. Anyways, so. That's basically it. Like, HOTS was interesting, but yeah, I think that might be it for, well, until the next promotion, right?
What? There's still current promotion going on. We've got 9 games to play. Well, I'm doing it. I think you just didn't like the game as much as I did. And the people we were playing with who were, like, actually played HOTS.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. It's definitely not my cup of tea, but... to each their own.
Yep. All right, so let's move back to Hearthstone. Card good, bad. Where we tell you whether a card is good or bad. So we have, I guess I'll talk about this one, just because we're doing a tier list change to it. Bittertide Hydra is a 5 mana 8/8, the new 5 mana 8/8 after Fel Reaver got removed, and it is not as good as Fel Reaver. Fel Reaver had a pretty insane score on our tier list, and we started this out high, and then we realized we messed up the math, and we dropped it, and we're dropping it again, this time just in recognition of the higher % chance of unplayability this card has than we originally expected. So it's going to be a 110, which puts it below Nesting Row, and also below Bomb Squad, but above cards like Silverhand Knight. So it's still definitely a good card, but it's no longer, like, I wouldn't call it premium anymore as a 5-drop. I just call it an above-average 5-drop. So the downside of this 5 mana 8/8 is that whenever it gets hit, you lose 3 health. So yeah, you want to talk about...
So, by the way, for our listeners, like, it's okay if you're talking about this card in game when people can see it, but it is Nesting Rock. For our listeners out there that have
it's Nesting Rock.
Cues, you have to say Nesting Rock.
Right, it's Nesting Rock.
Anyways, onto this card. Yeah, look, is it a good card? Yes, I still draft it quite a lot, and if you are trending aggressive in your deck, the score of this thing goes up so high. Because if you are the person pushing damage, you're basically saying, I am trading my health points for extra stats, right? And in effect, you know, if you take like sort of the transitive property, I'm trading my health for extra stats that go to my opponent's face. So I'm trading my health for my opponent's health. And in the if you are the aggressor in the matchup, you always do that, right? In a lot of cases, it's like, would you trade like 10 damage to your face for like 3 to 4 damage on their face? Yes. You know, like even that trade works out for you. And Bittertide Hydra is just one of those cards that sort of necessitates an answer if you're the aggressor. Now, it's still a fine card for mid-range and control. Like, stats are always good, but like Adwita says, for Fel Reaver, you know, it can mill cards and everything, but a lot of times those milled cards don't matter, right? Just pretend they're on the very bottom of your deck. It really doesn't matter. Bittertide Hydra, it matters starting from the turn in which it drops, because even if your opponent didn't have the game plan of going face and killing you, or you know, just killing you faster than they anticipated, it can potentially change their game plan, right? So it's still a really, really good card. But yes, you know, we have to recognize those times in which you just kind of can't drop it. I will say I have gotten 12 wins with Bittertide Hydra in my deck quite a few times. But if you look at those decks, they've always been the aggressor, right? I like, you know, when I draft like a slow sort of mage deck, I'm a little bit more hesitant because you can extract your value out of a lot of your spells, right? A lot of your big value spells. You don't need a Bittertide Hydra to win it for you. Same thing if I'm playing like a rogue, right? I'm always just like a little bit hesitant. It's still good. You'll still pick it, but this is one of those cards in which the value will swing significantly based on what type of deck you are drafting.
Yep. 110 for Bittertide Hydra, 116 for Priest, 92 for Rogue. Warlock is at 80. So for Rogue and Warlock, we actually think it's below average. Just because those two classes use their health pool so much, kind of almost no matter what they're doing.
Oh my god, I'm so happy whenever a Warlock drops this.
I have not seen a Warlock ever drop this.
Yeah, I don't think they draft it, which is good. You don't need Bittertide Hydra to win because you're switching a lot of health just to get some extra stats. You could get so many extra cards with the extra health that you have. So
it still buys you tempo, but it doesn't buy you card advantage anymore. Like it's like doing half of what the penalty normally does.
Yeah.
So that's Bittertide Hydra. I think one of the real problems in this is whenever you face a shaman, like what do? Is it like unplayable? Even after you bait out the first volcano, you easily have a second volcano. Like there's a lot of issues with it, and mage also makes it very difficult because it changes the mage. The mage will change its hero power into a hunter. Not only does it deal 1 damage to your minion, you now deal 3 damage to the opponent's face. And just so you know, like 3 damage is not actually like 50% more than 2 damage when it's your hero power. It's like double. Like if you think about how, what was that card that changed your hero power to make it like doubly good? Justicar? Yeah, Justicar. It replaced the hero power, replaced everyone's hero power. Like, if you were a Paladin, you get 2/1/1s, right? Instead of 1/1/1. But if you were a Hunter, what did you do?
3 damage.
You got 3 damage. You didn't get 4 damage, you got 3 damage. Because as damage goes up, it becomes more and more valuable each extra damage. Right? Yep. That's why the idea is if you have a full Mind Blast deck, you win. Alright, so that's Bittertide Hydra, 110, and it works in the reverse way as well, right? Which is what we're saying here. So the mage gets this new hero power once you play Bittertide Hydra. Shamans have weird things that can deal with it. Other classes can just like play a bunch of small things, and if you're attacking their face, that's fine, but they're going to eventually remove your minion while putting you low on health as well. So you have to really put enough pressure on them that they can never recover the board. Like, one of the things that you do as a hunter, and one of the ways you beat a hunter most consistently, is not just survive the hunter onslaught, but punch the hunter in the face. Because you have to kill the hunter. If you just keep stalling out, the hunter will eventually win. Because the hunter is dealing 2 damage to your face every turn.
Unless you're warrior.
Unless you're warrior, or priest.
Never play warrior.
But that's how the hunter will win in a stalled game. That's a big part of what mid-range hunter does as well. So even if you play it as like a hunter, for example, which also has the beast bonus and all that like good stuff, you're still putting yourself in a lot of danger once your opponent does take over the board. Like, you're still playing it with a risk. It's not even like all gain the way it seems like it would, because you normally think, oh, I don't care about my face. Because every turn you can stall the game, even when you don't have a board, is 2 extra damage. 2 extra damage of reach. And a Bittertide Hydra at least removes 1 turn. Sometimes can remove 2 turns from your game. So you have to like actually get in that face damage to make it worth it. Alright, so let's move on to our final topic of this Lightforge, this short Lightforge. Class Talk Paladin. We're about to do a coup on the Paladin, which is one of the classes that kind of, I think it regained a spot that it was like a little shaky on in 7.1.
Yeah, so I will begin by sort of talking about the 7.1 Paladin. Because I think in order to understand Paladins now, you have to see where it came from, right? And we're not going back in time that much. This was just like 2 months ago, or like a month and a half
ago, yeah.
Right. So 7.1 Paladins were really just dominated by hand buffs, right? If you remember, I called them like it was basically the solitaire class.
Yeah.
Really annoying, and I hated the way that you face Paladins, and I hated playing Paladins for this reason, because 7.1 Paladins were just dominated by Smuggler's Run plus the Grime Street Outfitter, right? That was sort of their win condition. Paladins weren't really the super traditional class of get on the board and buff it and snowball like that. It was sort of snowballing within your hand and asking your opponent, can you deal with this? If you can't, I probably just win because of the overwhelming amount of stats on the board. So coming into this expansion now, and let me know if you agree with this, Adulta, but now, like, whenever I see a Smuggler's Run or a Grime Street Outfitter, I'm just like, the card isn't that good anymore. It's not super impressive, right? Like previously in 7.1, if you were a Paladin, your deck was chock full of minions, right? So you drafted a lot of minions and you drafted a lot of that stuff, and you're fine. Now decks are filled with stuff like Lost in the Jungle, Vine Cleavers, Spike Ridge Steed. You have a lot of those and on top of the spell bonus as well, you have a lot of things that aren't buffed by that, and the win condition has changed. So it's weird. Like now I see Smuggler's Run and I see Grime Street Outfitters. I'm just like, I don't know. Like it's dropped significantly in my mind. The value of those cards, and I rarely see Paladins winning through that method anymore.
I mean, you talk about 7.1, I think you mean MSG. Even in 7.1, there were way too many like weapons and spells and random stuff for the Paladin to make it work. That's one of the reasons why Paladin wasn't so good in 7.1. It's because of all those spells.
No, I mean, I guess for 7.1, it's like, if you're going to win, you're winning through that.
Yeah, well, that's because you had no other choice. Tools. But it was still not good. And it wasn't good because once 7.1 came out, the Paladin fell because everybody had the ability to do more ridiculous stuff with all the spells around. And if you're a Paladin and you're like painstakingly like setting up your hand through solitaire and you're trying to build a board so you can buff something, like it's all kind of shaky. Like once you don't have a curve anymore with Paladin, and Paladin does not have a curve anymore. We talked before a few Lightforges ago about the 1-drop and how that's the new Paladin curve, right? You play 1-drop and then you hero power on 2, and that's fine for your curve. But it's a pretty rickety kind of curve for a class that's in pretty desperate need of curve. So for the entire game, the Paladin is just trying to get a board and not being very good at it. And then they explode if they do manage to like get something on, right? Like if you slip up. And then they have a lot of powerful ways to finish it. And if you don't put enough pressure on their face, Vine Cleaver will really, really get you, because then they can have a lot of tempo swing over 3 turns with Vine Cleaver while putting out these 1/1s that you can't really get rid of, and then they can buff the 1/1s, right? Like, it's an insane setup card. But if you do get a lot of damage on their face, like 1 Grime Street Protector will ruin your day if you leave their minions on the board, right? Because how do you get damage on the face? It's when both of you have some minions, but you hit his face, right? And you have a read that's like, oh, he has no buffs. That's fine, but then turn 7 comes, and then he does have a really good buff and you lose. So when you're facing the Paladin, you keep trying to like play this weird game where you need to get some damage on his face so he doesn't get value out of his weapons, but you also have to really worry about the board. So if you don't have a read, obviously you worry about the board first, but even if you have a read that he has no buffs, it's still kind of iffy to go face. But if you also just stall out for a bit, the Paladin has enough ridiculously big cards between Dino Size and Vine Cleaver and Spike Ridge Steed that and Protector and their version of Stone Steed, like Stonehill whatever guy. Stonehill
what? Stonehill
Defender. And their version of Stonehill Defender, which creates more big things that you can very well lose the end game. Right, because their hero power still generates a 1/1. It still puts tempo out on the board. It's still a card advantage hero power. So you really have to control the whole game in a very definite way. Like you have to be like 2-3 cards up to feel safe against the Paladin. and that's a real problem. And if you don't feel safe against a Paladin, they could really punish you if you leave anything on the board. So it really puts you in this dilemma. Like, Paladin is one of the bigger classes size wise in this meta.
Yeah. And I think I went through this previously, but it's very interesting how Paladins are, the cards that they have gotten this expansion allow them to get on the board very, very quickly. And they snowball in a very strange way. Like in the mid game, they have a lot of flexibility in terms of how they snowball it out. It's not just sort of Blessing of Kings or Silver Moon Portal, although, you know, they still have those options. Now they can just do like a 1-mana adaptation to try to find Poisonous, right? Or they can play like the Lightforge Stegodon with you know, their 1/1 minions, and they basically just have to get on the board quickly and try to find ways to stall until their power turns. Starting from turn 6, it's you know, Spikeridge Steed, Vine Cleavers, and Vine Cleavers you know, create 1/1 minions that are able to be Spikeridge Steeded again, or on the very next turn, Dino Size. So it's very, very effective, sort of the cards that were released for the Paladin, and how synergistic they are to each other. And it's just gotten to a point where they sort of they have really good tools against quite a few of the top classes. And the only class which is problematic for them is Rogue, right? Which get on the board even faster, have you know, sort of the perfect responses to the Paladin, and can deny them the board for, you know, the whole entire game, really.
Yep. Yeah. So Paladin kind of works against Mage pretty decently these days.
I think it's actually, it's so crazy to me, because historically it just hasn't been true, but Paladin, I think, is favored against Mage now. Like, sort of, you know, if you took the average Paladin versus the average Mage, like, the Paladin consistently gets out faster and then creates really awkward boards, and the Mage has to have so many answers, like good answers, perfect answers, right, to stop the Paladin from killing the Mage.
Yep. Like, Polymorph is the key, because Spikeridge Steed is coming, and you don't want to fight through that as the Mage.
Right.
And it also, like, they're in a good spot right now.
They're in a very good spot, mostly because a lot of people will pick Mage. That's sort of their comfort class, right?
Yep.
It's a very comfortable class for them, and they are able. And if they pick Mage, like I said, you should be favored. And even if you're facing Rogue, it's not like a auto loss. It's not like when this was months ago, and if you played a Hunter versus, you know, Greedy Warlock, you're 90% favored to win.
Yeah, this is just a slight favor.
Yeah, this is just a slight favor on the Rogue side. Like, I remember my 12-win run with a Pound. I think I faced like 6 Rogues in a row, starting from like 5 wins or something, and it was just like back-to-back Rogues. Able to win all of them, and mostly just because, like, even with the Rogues' hard removal, a lot of times, because if you have initiative on the board, you're able to get at least half the value of that, because you're buffing something and killing it off, right? So you're able to get that. And even when I Dino Size, like, you know, I go face if I can guarantee lethal next turn, or if you Dino Size something and trade into a minion, and then they sort of Vilespine Slayer it, you know, you got some value out of it.
You got good enough value out of it. And that's what the Paladin does now. So it's a value class that struggles to get on the board, but then when it gets on the board, that's where all the value kicks in. In some ways, it's not all that different from how it used to be. And you do have the hand buff still, so it gives it slightly another dimension, like another way of kind of getting back on the board, even though it's no longer as good as it used to be. So yeah, that's the Paladin for you. We will. No, I don't really have anything else to say about a Paladin. If you're facing against a Paladin, make your reads, man. Like, make your reads on the Spikeridge Steed and whether he has it or not. See if he has any kind of buffs or not. And that's all you can do. Consecration, obviously. And play him on the reads. And don't, like... You're just in such a bad spot. Because if you don't have the value, you're not going to beat the Paladin on value, so you need to go face. But then if you go face, Spike C stops you, Protector stops you, any heals, which the Paladin still has, stops you. So you're kind of just like picking your poison here, and there's just no good way to really deal with it. There's no like, this is the correct way to play. It's all based on reads. Like if you have the read that he does not have a buff, then yes, you need to go face. But you need to get that read first. So taking down the Paladin right now is so read based. Like if you're playing as the Paladin, it's pretty simple. But if you're playing against a Paladin, like, I mean, it really interacts with your mind more than most other classes.
That mind interaction, man. So good.
All right. So that's it for the Lightforge today. We're going to keep it short. Until next week, this is Adwicta.
This is Merps. See you guys.